Welcome everyone to Marvel Hub. This is DK Dynamite, and shout out to Rico90 over on the Marvel Studios Spoilers Reddit. He posted something that apparently got buried over on the Reddit when he last posted it, and this is supposed to be a pre-trailer rumored plot of Spider-Man Far From Home. Now what he means by pre-trailer rumored plot is that this actual plot leak was put out on the internet before the second Far From Home trailer came out. So take this all with a grain of salt. I made a video similar to this around a month ago talking about this major plot twist where MJ was supposed to be Nick Fury's daughter, and that could still end up being true, and so can this plot leak here today. So either one of these could be true, both of them could be fake, we just have no idea right now. So once again, as I always say, take this with a grain of salt. But jumping right into the plot leak, it says, so Peter helps Beck fight the elementals while also trying to still act like a normal teen and confessing to MJ that he likes her, but she thinks he was trying to confess he's Spider-Man, which she already knew. When MJ nearly dies, Peter going full force, building a new Spidey suit by using Stark tech and trying to destroy the elementals, but while attacking one of them, he realizes the monster is in fact a robot that was remotely controlled by Beck, who uses tech from his own Earth to make them look like monsters. Peter realizes that Beck was lying about everything, revealing him as a fraud. He was nothing but a petty magician, but when he crossed to Peter's Earth, he decided to use his tech to become a hero after he saw Iron Man was dead, and people needed someone new. They fight, but Beck escapes. Beck is using the tech to create illusions, letting Peter think he's fighting Vulture and seeing all of his friends die. Peter managed to snap out of it and beats Beck. Fury takes him into custody. Fury asks Peter to work with S.H.I.E.L.D. full-time, but he refuses, telling Fury there is only one Iron Man and he wants to keep helping the little guy. It is revealed that 5 years later, the Avengers Tower was bought and rebuilt as Oscorp Tower. Fury takes Beck there, and it is revealed that Fury is in fact a Chameleon. He takes Beck to a room with 4 other villains: Vulture, Scorpion, Shocker, and the Prowler. A voice is heard from the shadows, but we don't see a face. He tells them he wants them to help him take over now that the Age of Heroes is over. But first they need to get rid of someone who's a common enemy for them: Spider-Man. So this is a pretty interesting plot leak with a couple of flaws here and there, but what I will say is this could have easily been orchestrated or put together right after someone saw the very first Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, so there's no guarantee that this is anywhere near what the actual movie is going to be about. Once again, this could be an earlier draft of the official script for Far From Home. We've seen that kind of leak before with Avengers Endgame, so we don't know what's exactly true, but let's break down the plot a little bit. So starting off with the very first paragraph about Peter confessing to MJ that he likes her, but she thinks he was trying to confess that he's Spider-Man. We get a glimpse of that in the new trailer, so the fact that this was put out before the second trailer released is quite interesting, since that's exactly what we see in the second trailer where MJ thinks that Peter is Spider-Man. So sure, they could play along with that in the movie and say MJ knew the entire time, but that does fit in quite well with the actual concept or theory that MJ is Nick Fury's daughter, since obviously Nick Fury knows everything, so MJ knowing Peter is Spider-Man does line up pretty well with the fact that MJ is also Fury's daughter and was somehow sent as a spy over to watch Peter in Spider-Man Homecoming and then in Spider-Man Far From Home. So that lines up pretty damn well if that's the way she knows, but they could just be playing the logic game here with Spider-Man Far From Home and just say that, yeah, MJ is really observative of Peter and she knows exactly what he's doing and she pays attention to his actions and how he's never there when Spider-Man is, how it's obvious. They could be playing that card, or they could be playing the Nick Fury card where she's his daughter and kind of has a little bit of S.H.I.E.L.D. intel when it comes to what's going on in the world. So that's definitely a pretty good theory there. But the other part about when MJ nearly dies, Peter goes full force. Clearly the person who wrote this doesn't write or speak proper English, which is why there are a couple of typos and stuff in this leak, but I really do like the idea that Peter creates his own suit using Stark tech. I think a problem with Spider-Man Homecoming is for people who are diehard Spider-Man fans, they really thought that it was kind of a Debbie Downer that Peter was essentially given his suit, given his tech, given his knowledge and intel of how to be a hero from Tony, and it was almost like Peter was living in Tony's shadow. But now that Tony has passed away, Peter kind of has to do it himself. So I definitely was a fan of it in his Homecoming because I knew for a fact the writers were setting up the Peter to be a phenomenal hero, but this was just year one of his heroism and we needed to grow as a character. So looking at that, looking at how he was in Civil War and Homecoming, I knew for a fact eventually he would be the solo hero that we all know and love in the comics, where he's doing stuff by himself, himself, he makes his own suits. I knew that would eventually happen, which is why I had no problem with Tony giving him a jump start or a boost with his heroism. And now that Tony has passed away, Peter definitely has to pick up the slack. He's gonna be making his own suits. S.H.I.E.L.D. will probably give him the Noir suit, if I had to guess, but I think going for his other suits, Peter will definitely be using Stark tech and doing it himself. He's a smart kid, he knows what he's doing, and he definitely is motivated to keep going as Spider-Man, even though Tony is now gone. Despite some depression from Avengers Endgame, Peter is still living, is still going strong, and he's definitely going to be doing things himself going forward. But the actual leak here about Beck using robots and a little illusion to make people think the elementals are real, to me is some pretty cool writing, but definitely isn't really coming from left field. A lot of people are predicting right now that Mysterio will end up being a fraud throughout this movie. I think he's telling the truth about coming from a different Earth, and I think he's telling the truth about us being on Earth 616, but I don't think the elementals are just the main villains of the movie while Beck just helps Peter throughout the entire time. I'm pretty damn positive that they're gonna pull a little bit of a twist with Mysterio turning out to be bad. And once again, it's not really unreasonable for that to happen. Mysterio's been a villain since the 1960s for Spider-Man, so just about everyone who's a Spider-Man fan knows what Mysterio is up to. They know he's a petty magician, they know he's a fraud, so for that to happen in the movie would be staying close to the source material for the character himself, which we have no problem with, but we definitely need some other interesting twists and some really cool, interesting plot details to make this movie great, besides doing what people are already expecting for this movie. But in terms of us being on Earth 616, this was teased in many other Marvel movies before, more specifically Thor the Dark World, where you have Eric writing on the whiteboard and talks about Earth 616. So I think this has been established before and it's really nothing new, and I have no problem with it because once again they're staying close to the source material, so him coming from the Earth where Spider-Man UK is from is quite interesting and was confirmed in the clip released by the Ellen Show. So Mysterio is from Earth 883, I believe, which is where Spider-Man UK is from, which fits in pretty well with the fact that Peter is going to the UK throughout his field trip. So let me know what you think of that down below in the comments. Now, in terms of the illusions Beck starts using to fight Peter, that's also pretty damn cool because Peter could start seeing the Vulture again, maybe his friends die. There's a lot of potential with the illusions that Mysterio brings to the table, which to me is pretty damn exciting. And it would be really crazy if an illusion somehow came into Peter's mind about Tony or about some Avengers or about some scenes from Endgame or Civil War. That would be really quite interesting if we got to see something like that within Spider-Man Far From Home. But in terms of that twist that Fury is actually the Chameleon, that's also a pretty interesting plot point, since many people are commenting down below in this Reddit thread saying maybe the Fury that calls Peter at the beginning of the trailer is actually the real Nick Fury, maybe warning Peter or asking him something, and then he doesn't actually meet the real Nick Fury until maybe some point towards the third act of the movie when it's revealed that Peter's been working with a fraud the entire time. Maybe Agent Hill was real, but maybe the Nick Fury who was working with Peter and Mysterio and the Elementals was actually the Chameleon. So that's definitely a good idea for how this plot twist could work, and to me it would be really interesting and a great transition into the Oscorp Tower scene that's also listed here in this plot leak. So since 5 years have passed between Infinity War and Spider-Man Far From Home, a lot has definitely happened in that time and is a super easy opportunity for Norman Osborn to come into the mix, to buy Avengers Tower and to make it Oscorp Tower, and going forward starts creating the foundation for the Sinister Six. So it was confirmed by some of the screenwriters and directors for Far From Home that apparently the Vulture will not be making an appearance in this movie. So going with that, they could be throwing us off, they could be intentionally lying just to throw our expectations off, and we've seen this before with Avengers Endgame and some other Marvel movies as well, where the directors don't want to tell us what's going to happen, they try to throw our expectations out the window so that we start making theories about different things and not what actually does make sense. And what does make sense is that Vulture would make a cameo in this movie in one way, shape, or form, either in prison, either in this Oscorp Tower scene if it's real, or as an allusion towards Peter when Mysterio's fighting him. There's a lot that could happen with this, and maybe the voice from the shadows, as is listed here in this leak, is Norman Osborn, talking about kind of aligning or creating a team with these villains here for Spider-Man and kind of fighting a common enemy, easily setting up Spider-Man 3, which would be really exciting to talk about when the time comes. But in terms of who can play Norman Osborn, there are a lot of fan theories out there right now, but we have no information as to whether or not Marvel can even use Norman Osborn in the MCU or whether or not he's locked over at Sony. But the other theories out there was that the Avengers Tower was bought by either Oscorp or by Baxter, so you either see Oscorp Tower or the Baxter Tower going forward, and I'm really leaning more towards Oscorp Tower, since it was revealed Avengers Tower was bought in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a perfect opportunity to say, yeah, we teased Oscorp Tower all the way in Spider-Man Homecoming, since obviously Norman Osborn is a Spider-Man villain. But I really think Norman Osborn has the potential to be a villain that's fleshed out over the course of 1, maybe 2, possibly even 3 phases. He's such a massive villain that can be not only a threat to Spider-Man, but even the Avengers as well, with the Dark Avengers storyline, destroying New Asgard. There's so much they can do with Norman Osborn that currently fits very well with the narrative the MCU has at this point in time. So a lot of potential for him. Really looking forward to whether or not any one of these leaks that we mentioned here today are true when Spider-Man Far From Home does release. But if we had to say whether or not this was legit, I will say that since this was put out before the second trailer, and the fact that it mentions that MJ pretty much already knows Peter is Spider-Man, that does line up pretty damn well with the second trailer. I definitely can't lie about that.
MJ, I
am Spider-Man.
No, of course not.
But that's about it. Leave all your thoughts down below. This has been EK Dynamite. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn notifications on to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Marvel news and information. And peace out, everyone.